Hi, everyone. Give everyone a couple of seconds to join. Right. So today we're going to be talking about how we could use CXM to do some innovation. We've been looking at a few different things that kind of, make CXM really useful. I'm going to be doing some videos on how to hook up CXM with G Suite, and afterwards, my friend from Methods, Mike Holmes, has done a video about how you could hook up CXM with Microsoft Power Apps. If anyone was watching the previous session, Andy Perkins kindly said that we're going to be covering some Zapier stuff. We're not going to be covering that today. However, if you are interested in it, on the Jadu library, if you type in tutorials into the search, there's a couple of video tutorials about that, and you can learn a little bit from there. So as with the other ones, you can tweet this. We're going to share the recordings. Ask any questions you want whenever you want. We'll go through them at the end of the session. So the first thing to say is I'm not a developer. We're going to touch on some code today. However, everything I've done, I've essentially taken from Google's documentation or Stack Overflow and done some manipulation of it. However, for the G Suite side of things, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using webhooks. We're going to use the CXM Service API, and we're going to use AppScript. So the things we're going to cover off are taking data from a webhook and putting it into a Google Sheet, taking information from a Google Sheet and posting it back into CXM. We're going to touch on briefly Data Studio and how to take information from Google Sheets and put it into Data Studio. We're going to show you how to create and display cases on a Google Map. We're going to talk about creating cases from Google Forms, Google Calendars, and from emails. So first off, what is AppScript? Basically, Google provides you with an environment where you can write some JavaScript. There's nothing to install. It's free. There is a paid tier. If you want to use a paid tier, you do get a little bit more. If you go onto a paid tier, but for a lot of instances, the free tier will be fine. So how to get started? Well, basically, you just need to create a Google account. You can go to script.google.com. I've created some sample scripts. Again, I'm not a developer, so there might be some improvements that can be made along the way, but actually, you can get started today with everything that I'm about to go through. Make use of the Service API. I would say be mindful of Google's limits, and you can check their quotas on everything in their documentation. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to show you how to just catch information in a Google Sheet using webhooks. So what I've got here is basically a Google Sheet, and I've got some headers in it. I've got a reference, what case type, when it was created, the status of it, and who created it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Script Editor, and I am going to paste in the code that I've given. Basically, all this is going to do is tell the sheet where to put the data that the webhook sends it. So if I save this, and then deploy as a web app, give it permissions so CXM can publish to it. And then copy the URL. Now in CXM, if I go to Settings, System, Webhooks, create a new webhook. give it a name. Paste in the URL, and then send it every time a case is created. Now, when I go into cases, create a new case, hit submit, I can see I've created a case. Doesn't have anything in it, but it doesn't matter for the demo. And we check our Google Sheet. We can see that we've created, start the video again. We can see that it's created an entry in my Google Sheet. So this is good if you want to create just a list of every single case that comes in, so you can see all the actions happening. However, quite a common aspect of using webhooks is trying to get useful, up-to-date live information. So what we're going to do in the next part is, sorry guys, make a change. So we're going to add in a transition. So not only now whenever a case is created, we're going to make it so whenever a case is transitioned, it's going to update that Google Sheet. So first thing to do is add the transition, add the update code. Basically, all that update code does, if I rewind it a tiny bit, is separates out, if a case is created, add a new line. If a case has been transitioned, update the case wherever that case reference exists. So what we're going to do is create a new case. And it will come into our Google Sheet. We can go into it, accept it. You notice the status changes, and then the status also changes within our Google Sheet. So this is really useful for reporting, which we'll touch on shortly. But one of the things I wanted to show is you can extend this a little bit further. If you actually want to carry out functions, you can actually enter functions into this at the exact same time. So if we switch to the next video, what I've done is I've added a couple other columns. So if I want to, I can create a link to a case and also a VLOOKUP function. So in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to look up the reference number in the table tab, and we're going to bring back the true or false value that's respective of whatever case we're about to create is. So we're going to update our code, create a new case. Go back to our sheets. And now when the case has been created, you can see that it's created a link to the case that we've just created within the sheet. And it's also brought back a VLOOKUP answer. So if we look up 317 in our table, we can see that that value is true. So to take it one step further, if we click on our case, we can see that actually it's been updated as well using the service API to have that value. Now, where I think this could be really useful are things like skips. So if you're trying to implement a process for skips, you might want a process where actually every case you want to automatically approve unless you're on a busy street. So if you have a list of UPRNs that are just your busy streets, you could quite easily do a lookup to check to see, is this street that someone wants to skip on a busy street? If so, you might want some manual intervention. So that's updating in Sheets. The next thing I wanted to talk about briefly is reporting in Data Studio. So Data Studio, being a Google product, natively integrates with Google Sheets. So if you want to pass this information from Sheets into Data Studio, it's really just a click of a button. There's nothing more to do. However, it's also got reams of other applications that it can integrate with as well. So when you're doing your reporting, you can not only use Jadu data, but you can compare that with your Google Analytics data, or if you have other databases that you want to also include. The benefit of using Data Studio, and you'll have to forgive me, I am not the most visually gifted person. So my reports do look a bit, well, like this. So what you can do is you can create these graphs, you can create your reports, they can be really visual. In this instance, what I've done is I've created a map with hotspots of cases based on longitude and latitude. So I can work out hotspots in the area of Leicester. The darker the circles, the more prominent the issues, the lighter the circles, the fewer. But what you'll notice in the top there, highlighted in red, is a refresh button. So if constantly you have your sheets that are getting information regularly from CXM, once you hit refresh, actually the Data Studio will refresh all of your data, so you get live instantaneous reporting. And you can share these reports like you can share everything else within Google. So if you have a lot of key stakeholders that want the same information month after month, you can set these reports up once, share the link with them, and actually that's it. The reporting stays there for good. So moving on to the next segment, we're going to show you a quick video about hooking up Google Maps with CXM. So switch to my video. So what we've done here is we've created a Google map, and basically all the pins that are generated are using the CXM Service API to look at a specific dashboard. The dashboard contains just open cases from CXM, from the case type that I'm interested in. And each of those case types contain a longitude and latitude, which are also in the dashboard. So what we've done is create a polygon. So if you click outside the polygon, nothing happens. But if you click inside, you get the opportunity to create a case. So we're not going to go to any forms or anything else like that in this instance. We're just going to go here, create a case straight from the map. So when we hit refresh, we can see that pin's been automatically added to the map. So what we can do now is we can see that the status and the case reference, and we can also add additional information. So we can add the ability to sign up for updates, for example. At the moment, I've only got this hooked up to go into a Google Sheet to track interest, but there's no reason why that couldn't go anywhere else or be hooked up to anything else. So if I go into CXM, I find my case, and I transition it from submitted to under investigation. I can see that it changes in the map from submitted to under investigation. If I go back into CXM, and I close the case by collecting the item, and I refresh, because it's no longer an open case, it no longer shows on the Google map. This one is a little bit more difficult. The code is available, as I said earlier, on the library for downloads. Feel free to use it. If you need some help implementing it, if you want to implement it, let us know, because we'd be dead keen to try and help you out. So moving on to the next element. So just because we have Jadu XFP doesn't mean that's the only Forms platform that's going to be possible to create cases in CXM. So in this example, we've got a Google form where we're going to add some new questions. We're going to visit the front end and fill out the form. We're going to visit our case in CXM. And see that it's captured all the information from the form into CXM. I did only do this into one field within CXM, but there's no reason why you can split this out into anything that you wanted to. The next video that we're going to play is Google Calendar. So this is more of a proof of concept than anything else. I haven't worked out a legitimate use, but I feel by sharing with you all, you might find something useful. If I create a new event within my Google Calendar, I hit save. I wait a couple minutes. I've sped this up for us though. We'll see that actually the case gets updated with the event gets updated with the CXM case reference. Now there is also a little flag that it adds. So cases new events only get created once from a Google Calendar event, and there's probably quite a bit you could do here, but it just proves that from a Google Calendar you can interact with CXM and kind of do what you want to, really. The next and last thing I think might be one of the more useful videos. So what we've got here is the ability to create CXM cases from emails. I thought I would show you how Google get you to run scripts if they're not based on us sending Google information from a webhook, for example. So I have triggers within Google, and I can create functions within my app script, and I can determine how often to run these scripts. So in this example, I'm wanting Google to check my emails every minute and process all of my emails in that inbox. So, have I hit play? Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I've got a script that's on there. And then I've got emails in my notes with a notes label on it. Anything within my inbox that has a notes label on will be processed. And then when it gets done processing, it's going to move into a label with the process label. So I'm going to hit refresh a few times, and we can see these emails starting to disappear from my inbox. And when I change from my notes label to my process label, I can see that they've all automatically moved across. So the emails are still intact in my inbox, but they haven't been removed. When I go into CXM, I can see 3 cases have been created. And I can see that the subject line has been pulled out, as well as the body contents. So the first email didn't have any attachments in. So if I go into my second email where I did have an attachment, you can add your attachments also to the case. So depending on what you want to do or what emails you have set up, you can send these across straight into CXM. And then finally, where it doesn't matter how many attachments you have, if you have 1, 2, or 3, it's going to send across all of these attachments into your case. But also, if you know who has raised the case, because the from email address matches a user within your system, it's going to assign the relevant person to that case as well. So when they log into the My account, they can see their interaction with the council. So what I'm going to do now, this is kind of my segment, which is how things kind of work within Google and with the CXM API and webhooks. The principle for this is exactly the same with whatever you're doing. So I mentioned earlier, my colleague Mike from Methods has done a video showing a similar thing using the Microsoft product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Mike's video shortly, and then we're going to open up the session to a Q&A. So you guys have seen a whole bunch of stuff in my session. You're going to see Mike's stuff, and then hopefully we've got a good amount of time for some really good, hard, difficult questions, because we've got Tom Nickalls on the line as well, who's going to answer all the hard ones. Appreciate it, Tom. And we'll take it from there. So next up, you're going to hear Mike from Methods, and we're going to play his video now.
James has shown you how to interact with CXM using a host of Google applications and services. For us, majority of our customers are Microsoft based, and most of them have Office 365. So I'm here to make the point that you can interact in that same way with pretty much anything. And as an example, we're going to quickly look at here today creating a case when an email comes into a Microsoft Outlook inbox. We're going to start by looking at the Service API call for that. So there we are. If you look at the Service API documents, you'll see it's quite a simple call to create a case in Jadu. You just have to replicate this URL for your account and then pop in any fields that you want to populate when you create a case. I use a tool that's quite handy for building my API calls. It's free and it's widely used, called Postman. You can see here in the example, I just pop in that URL, and then in the body, I'll pop in the fields that I want to populate. In this example, I'm going to take the email body and the sender email, and I'm going to pop that into the Jadu case. When you've got that, you can simply export that as a Postman file and move across into Power Automate. Power Automate is something that you'll get a license for if you're a 365 subscriber. You can also pay for individual licenses for this from Microsoft as well, and it's really quite cheap and very powerful. Right, so the first thing to do when I'm happy with my API connection, I've tested it there in Postman, is to create a custom connector in Power Automate, which sounds very scary, but it's actually really quite easy. So I'll go into custom connectors and I will create a new custom connector, and you have various options. The one I'm interested in today is from a Postman file. So I will name that create CXM general inquiry, which is what we're going to do today, and I'll just bring in that file I've already tested with my API. Get a few options. I can upload an icon that means something to me. In this case, I've got one prepared, and that's really all you need to do. There are lots of other settings. You can do a lot of things with the custom connectors, but we're keeping it really simple today, and we'll just create that description and name, create connector. Right, so now I can go into flows and I can start to create my new flow, which is really simple now. We've done the hardest bit and it wasn't that hard. We're going to create an automated flow. It's going to trigger, and we'll say, again, create, and we're going to trigger it with an Outlook item. Now in this case, there are lots of options. I just want to trigger it from a shared inbox when a new mail arrives. That's simple. The address I'm using today is just our local government team inbox, just for this demonstration. There are a lot of options I have here about when I trigger this event. I'm keeping it simple. It's just when a new email arrives. But there's all sorts of things you can do. You can filter what's in the subject and get very whizzy with that, but I'm not going to. So that's my new one. A little extra step, because the email could very often come in HTML format. It's very common, and we don't really want to be passing that straight through to a case. We just want the text as it comes. So we're going to use nice little components out of the box here, and I'm going to tell it that I want the body from the previous step, the previous email. Right, I just want to translate that and get rid of all the HTML if there is any. Okay, so now I just use my custom connector. So we've got our key parameter there that it's pulled out from my Postman file, and all we need to do is allocate what fields we want to go drop into that custom connector and then use in our service case. So in terms of the email request, I got that filtered text from the previous step, and I'm just going to use that. And then the email field I will simply take as the from the Outlook email and save. Okay, and that is my Microsoft flow. So let's have a test. So if I come back here, I can monitor this. And when I get some in here, I'll get a history of what's come in. So let's fire an email and test it. I'm going to use my inbox, and I'm going to go fire an email to the inbox that we're monitoring. Right, now I'm going to leave all of this nasty stuff in the email just to see how it handles it and does it right to the case properly. So let's fire that email, and let's go back and let's refresh that and see when that comes in. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to do a click to refresh, and I'm going to scroll down. I can see the job succeeded, so that's good news. And let's have a look in our sandbox, which is where I have been sending this case to. Oh, and there's our new case. And there is our email, and it's handled everything perfectly well. And that was the purpose of that extra little step, to strip out all the HTML and images that it might have problems with when creating the case, which is very simple. So now this is ready to be dealt with. It sent an automatic response, which I probably have in my email now. There is the automated response.
Right. Thanks for that from the guys at Methods. What I'm going to do now is we're gonna launch a new poll. We've seen a lot of stuff throughout the day, and we're interested to know whether or not you think you have the expertise required within your organization to use webhooks and APIs. You can see the results coming in. Okay, starting to slow down now. So about half of you think yes, you do. 20%, give or take, some say no, and about 30% are unsure. So what we've got now, so that's really useful to know, because that kind of helps Tom and the product teams try to understand exactly kind of their roadmap for how we develop this stuff for yourselves moving forward. So we're at the point where we're entering our Q&A session. So from the Jadu team, you've got myself and Tom Nickalls, but also on the line we've got Mike and Matt Copeland from Methods. So what we want to do is just start going through some of the Q&A questions. So the first question, and it seems like a common question, is does this work without Google Sheets, like just on normal Excel? Yes, I think is kind of the answer to that question. The stuff that I've done and put into the library, that is just for Google Sheets. However, the stuff that Mike was presenting was trying to showcase exactly how the same sort of concepts could just be applied using kind of the Microsoft products that come out of the box. The next one that we have is it just Google related? And same answer. would you use a connector script uploaded to the library by another customer? I don't see why you couldn't. It's open, it's accessible. One of the really nice things about Google that I find, and Microsoft for that point, is that there's so many people that know exactly how everything works in detail. If you don't know the answer to it, you can quite easily Google it and get the answer. We've got a new question from. My question is there an easy jumpstart kit to get us going? So yes. So if you go to jadu.net/library/G Suite, that will give you the stuff from myself, from the Google perspective. I'll let Mike or Matt Colpin handle the Microsoft response.
Hello, and hello, Simon. Thanks for the question. There isn't a nice jumpstart kit like that. I guess you saw in my video that there wasn't really anything in the way of code there. So there are a lot of good Microsoft guides, a lot of great stuff online. Maybe we could give you some links and get those up later. So it was really quite easy what I did there in Microsoft, and I didn't use really any code at all. So there's not a jump start in the same way. But again, as James was saying, there's a lot of stuff online to show you how to do this, and it's really pretty straightforward.
I think, hi, it's Tom here. One thing we'd also look to explore is whether it's possible to for us to build some of these connectors in a reusable way. Mike, I don't know if you know how much that is possible, or whether that's something that Jadu could go away and do and then make that available to all customers.
Well, in some cases, yes, and in a way, James has pretty much done that with his code examples. In some cases, it's harder. It is possible to export your flows, so we might investigate looking at building some Power Automate. It used to be called Microsoft Flow. We might look at building some flows and perhaps exporting those, and then people could import them and amend them. So we could have a look at that.
Okay, we've got another one in. Can this link in with the AWS chatbot? So from my perspective, I don't see why not, because effectively the AWS chatbot, the way that works is it works directly with CXM. It's just another integration as it would be for any other product. So if you wanted to integrate it with a chatbot, CXM with a chatbot, that's great. If you then want to also include an integration with something like Google or with Microsoft, I would imagine it would work in the exact same way. You might want to think potentially about some of your race conditions. So like if you want 2 or 3 things happening at the same time, how that might potentially work. But yeah, I would see no reason why that couldn't work with AWS.
Just to expand on that, James, some of you may be aware, may have heard of the integration between CXM and AWS, which is in beta at the moment. So that's integration with Amazon Lex. So that's effectively the bot that sits behind the chatbots, but can also be hooked into their telephony offering. So eventually you could have telephony or voice raising a case in CXM. So the way that started out was with Northampton, just using the APIs in CXM to interact with between AWS and CXM. We worked with them and then actually built out a core integration. So that integration between the Lex bot at the moment just raises a case, but if you had the expertise, there's no reason why you couldn't use CXM's APIs to do more than that. And that's where we're really eager to work with customers to understand what they want to do. So where we see applications like Amazon Lex being used commonly, we would look to take away some of the difficulty in working with their APIs and ours, and actually build it into a core integration. So there's many steps to this, and a lot of it's about talking with you. So using things like the customer Slack channel, using the CXM channel in there to do that, to have that dialogue to understand your needs.
Okay, so we don't have any more questions, and I think that might start to wrap up the session for today, which is a little bit earlier than anticipated. So if no one's got anything else, we'll wrap it up for now. Thank you to everyone who's taken part into the Jadu Academy and come to these sessions. We've really enjoyed putting it on, and I guess that's it from us. Thanks very much, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.